Hello, church family, and welcome to today's Heart to Home devotional. Robert here, and I'm just honored to be here, and thank you for tuning in. And to those that do not attend Calvary Chapel, we're just honored to have you here. So today's devotional is titled God's Provisions During the Storms. And just kind of a little thing here. It might go a little bit longer, but try to hang in there. I would like to start out by sharing my own situation or my own storm. As some of you know, I was caretaking for my mom since the end of June this year. And my mom, she went to be with the Lord on October 11th, 2022. My mom was the most amazing person I have ever known on this earth. She was the caretaker to anyone she met. She would help anyone who needed help, even if it went against her flesh, and that's because it's what God has done for us with Jesus. She very much loved our God and wasn't ashamed to admit it. I could go on and on about her wonderful attributes, but her best attribute was keeping it together through the storms, and no matter what life threw at her. My mom was one of those people that it would almost seem, if it could go wrong, it always did for her in many ways, and she used to use the term suck luck. I could spend hours citing examples that would probably make you say things like, "Oh, you're just kidding, you're making that up." But the most recent was her health and the journey that took her on that led to her death. And so my mom had been sick with no diagnosis for probably about a year and a half. She suffered in silence. Started out as stomach pain and nausea. Then in February of this year, she was rushed to ER with shortness of breath. She was diagnosed with CHF, and she went through some tests and then had an angiogram to confirm no blockages. Hallelujah, there was no blockages. However, they did find that she had atrial fibrillation. So after the angiogram, she wanted to come out to my house to recover from the angiogram because I have a guest room downstairs and just made things easier for her. 5 days later, I came home from work and she wanted to go to the hospital. She was very ill. She went to Hemet Hospital and was admitted, and that seemed to be a good thing. Well, during her stay, they found water on the outside of her lung and drained it. Well, they came back, and so they put in I think it's called a thoracentesis. It's a drain in her lung. Then she contracted COVID and was stuffed into the COVID ward. She was released back to me, and when she got in the car, she broke down in tears, and she just said that she couldn't go on like this, and we kept going. So a few days later, she had a fall at my house that caused her confusion, and she didn't know where she was. She was sent by ambulance to Loma Linda, Murrieta. This was a very good experience at Loma Linda, and they suggested a good primary care and cardio in the area that could take care of her. And so we wanted to pursue that. She was released on July 21st, and it was in the evening, and the next day I called her insurance to switch primaries. They said, well, if you had just called by the 20th, we could have made this active August 1st, but since it's after, we now have to wait till September 1st. Tried to fight it, but lost. So we lost doctor care for about 6 weeks, and any in-home care and meals that came from doctors at Hemet. We had to close that case and wait for September 1st. So that meant I had to learn how to properly drain her lungs every 3 to 4 days with these drain kits. And then we started to run out of drain kits, and her primary that she had, he wouldn't sign the paperwork to get more drain kits ordered. The distributor then told my mom, well, if you just pay cash, we can send them out. It's $900 for 10 of them. And so I just told my mom, just pay the $900. We don't have to deal with the charades of this dismal failure. And after she paid, they said, well, her primary still needed to sign off. So he wouldn't respond. So I went to the internet and the resources that are available to many people. I was able to find his home address, and I was able to find his personal cell phone and got in touch with him. He was very shocked, to say the least, but it still took a couple days, but he got the point, and he finally signed off on him. But also my sister, which was a godsend, was able to find somebody that had a similar situation and was able to mail them across states for us at no charge. They even paid the postage, so definitely a blessing there. So during that 6 weeks, she ended up back in the hospital and was told she had a mass on her pancreas and would need to test the fluid. They did, but they lost the fluid and then said it wasn't a mass, it was just fluid buildup. They said, we will send her to a convalescent home for rehab, and the place is beautiful. It's great. Well, they sent her to a different place. They had no AC. They forgot the oxygen tank on the medic to transport. And then for no apparent reason, the nurse started yelling at my mom. So she called us, and my sister and her boyfriend Quinn went out and got her and brought her back to my house. Now fast forward to September 6th through October 8th, we had doctor visits. All seemed good. It was a shame, however, that the cardiologist made a statement like, well, if they had just done a cardioversion 3 months ago when this was diagnosed, they could have corrected that, which seemed to probably would have mitigated most of the stuff that she was going through. And her new primary said that she could be back to normal probably in a couple months, which just seemed like a mountain to my mom, but it still seemed promising. Well, then we get to October 8th, and we discovered that she had fallen out of bed at some time during her sleep, and she stayed there all night. She couldn't move by this point. So I instinctively called an ambulance and got her to the hospital. My sister and I had just had a talk the day before about, hey, we need to get mom into some type of inpatient care. She's really digressing, and it's the best thing for mom, despite how we feel. We wanted to take care of her. And so when she ended up in the hospital, we really felt that was an answer to prayer. And so we had peace in that. Me and my sister, we had spoken to my mom on the next day, Sunday the 9th, and we both noticed that she just really sounded out of it. I even asked if she was drugged, so just for painkillers and such. So anyways, Monday, nobody made contact with her. We just kind of, thought things were okay. And then went to bed that night. And at 2:41 in the morning on October 11th, I was woken up to a phone call, and I was told that her heart had stopped. And they were doing compressions, and I was in shock, to say the least. And so I started making calls. They called me back. They said, hey, we got her heart started. She has a breathing tube down her throat, and we're transferring her to ICU, so you may want to get here. So I asked if she was conscious, and they said she's conscious, but she's medicated, so she's not responsive. So I drove from Hemet to Upland to get my dad so we can get back to Moreno Valley to get to the hospital. Now, before we left my dad's house, the hospital called again, and they said her heart had stopped again, and they were continuing compressions, but they wanted to ask us what we wanted them to do because it just didn't look good. Needless to say, my dad didn't know how to answer that, and my mom had told me that if she was ever on a breathing machine, or she was just going to be in a vegetative state, just to let her go. And still, with that knowledge and wanting to honor my mom, how do you answer that? And so I asked what the prognosis was, and at the end of the day, I said, just do what your standard protocol is in these situations, and I just left it in God's hands. And after 3 rounds of CPR and medicine to restart her heart, she went to be home with the Lord. So my mom's favorite Psalms was Psalms 23. She knew it by heart. So knowing what that says, I asked, where's God in all this? It's easy to get distracted from His Word when you go something that's very traumatic. So first, we have to know that our days they're accounted for by God. My mom was married for 51 years, and it was a broken marriage, and she felt it was going to be the death of her. But God made a way that she could live with her son the last 3.5 months of her life, and also be close to my sister. So also, every time the doctors fail, God made a way for my sister and I to take care of it. She absolutely loved seeing her kids take care of her during her illness. She felt bad, but she loved it. She felt she was always taking care of people, and nobody was there to take care of her. So this was definitely a blessing. When they wanted to send her to a convalescent, God made a way to get her back to my house. And finally, when her last day was approaching, God made a way to get her to a hospital so my sister, who was staying at my house to help, would not have had to find her dead when bringing her morning protein shake. The trauma would have been absolutely horrible. So when you look at it from what the Word teaches us, and there's more to this situation, I'm literally just paraphrasing, you can literally see God's provisions for everyone through the darkest journey of our family's life. And as we are told in Psalms 23, We did have green pastures to lie in. We were beside the still waters. And although my mom was walking through the valley of shadow of death, God was with her. And through her trust in Jesus, she will now dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So thank you for this long devotional, and all the glory to God for His provisions and His blessings. So please check the link in our description for a song that reminds me of my mom. God bless you all, and I love you.